Please, I'm begging you." Yet the rancher lifted her up and was left stunned. Far away from the busy colonies, on the edge of the Crimson Canyon, the rancher Elias Harrow was finishing his day's work. His ranch was modest but alive, with several grazing airy beasts, winged, gentle creatures that thrived in Orlia Prime's thin atmosphere. Elias liked the quiet, he liked the routine, and he liked solving problems with his own two hands. The day had been ordinary, filled with the soft hum of his hovering tools and the distant calls of alien birds. But just as he was cleaning the last of the feed troughs, a strange, urgent sound cut through the calm, the distress signal from his old communications array. The device was nearly ancient, one of the few relics from when the colonies were first built. He rarely used it except to check messages from neighboring ranchers. This time, however, the signal was different. It crackled sharply, almost as if it were struggling to get through. A voice, young, shaky, and desperate, spilled from the array. "Please, someone, anyone, I need help." Elias froze, his calloused hands gripping the edge of the comm panel. He had heard distress calls before, but they were usually minor. Stranded hikers, malfunctioning drones, lost supplies. This was different. The voice trembled with fear, and beneath it he could hear the uneven hiss of air escaping, a sign of danger. He leaned closer. "This is Elias Harrow. I hear you. Who is this and where are you?" A pause. Then the voice replied, nearly a whisper. "Lyra Venn, I'm trapped on the east cliff of Crimson Canyon. My hover pack failed, I'm falling." Elias' heart pounded. Crimson Canyon was notorious. Its cliffs were sharp, its magnetic winds unpredictable, and its rock surfaces could shift without warning. Even seasoned rescue teams avoided it unless absolutely necessary. Yet the urgency in Lyra's voice left him no choice. "Hold on," he said, keeping his voice calm. "I'm coming, stay where you are and don't move. Please, I'm begging you." The words were almost drowned by a sudden gust of wind. Elias grabbed his hover suit and tossed essentials into his pack. A tether, emergency supplies, and a compact robotic arm he had built for moving heavy items. Every tool was carefully checked. Mistakes could be fatal here. He mounted his hovercraft, the engine humming as it lifted off the ground. Dust and tiny pebbles whirled around him as he sped across the uneven terrain toward the canyon. The closer he got, the stranger the landscape became. Crimson Canyon was not just red stone. It was alive, or at least it seemed that way. The cliff walls glowed faintly in strange patterns, almost like veins of light pulsing under the surface. Elias had seen odd rock formations before, but never like this. He slowed his hovercraft, carefully scanning the cliffside for Lyra. Then he saw her. She was perched on a narrow ledge, clinging desperately to a rock outcrop. Her hover pack had indeed failed, lying a few meters below her, sparking slightly with malfunctioning circuits. The winds here were stronger than he expected, tossing dust and small stones across the cliffside like tiny missiles. "Hold on, I'm coming," Elias shouted, extending his robotic arm from the hovercraft. Lyra's eyes widened as she looked up at him. "Please, please hurry." Elias' heart tightened. She was small and fragile-looking, but she carried herself with a determination that spoke of intelligence and courage. Slowly, carefully, he maneuvered the hovercraft closer. The robotic arm stretched, its claw-like grip steady despite the violent gusts. "Grab my hand," he commanded. Lyra reached out, trembling, her fingers brushing against the robotic arm. With a careful motion, Elias locked the claw around her harness. Step by step, he lifted her upward, her weight pulling against the controls of the hovercraft. The wind tried to push him off course, but his hands, trained for years on tricky terrain, held firm. Finally, with one last effort, she was safe on solid ground. Both of them gasped, the wind whipping around them like a living thing. Elias kept his hovercraft close, but now he noticed something he hadn't before. The cliff seemed to react. The faint glowing patterns shifted subtly, almost as if the rock itself had been watching the rescue and now moved in response. Lyra sank to the ground, hugging her knees. I can't believe you made it. I thought I was done for." Elias crouched beside her, brushing dirt from his jacket. "You're safe now. That's all that matters. How did you get yourself into this mess?" Lyra wiped tears from her cheeks. "I was studying the cliffs, the alien formations. They were fascinating, and I didn't notice how unstable the ledge was. Then my pack failed, and I couldn't move, I thought." She shivered. Elias nodded silently, understanding. Curiosity was a double-edged sword, especially on a planet like Orlia Prime. "Don't worry, you're okay now. That's the important part." She looked up at him, her eyes wide and filled with gratitude. "Thank you. I was begging for someone to help, and you came." Elias gave a small shrug, though inside he felt a surge of pride mixed with worry. "It's what humans do, isn't it? We don't just watch, we act." Lyra's gaze drifted to the cliffs again, fascination replacing fear. "It's alive, isn't it? I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Look at the glow, it's like it's breathing." Elias studied the cliffside. The faint luminescent veins pulsed slowly, almost rhythmically, like a heartbeat. He had worked with animals all his life, and instinctively he knew that this planet's geology was interacting with its own ecosystem in ways humans didn't fully understand. "We'll figure it out," he said. "But first, we get somewhere safe. Then we can look closer." As they began walking back toward his ranch, the canyon winds began to die down, and a calm settled over the landscape. Elias could still feel the cliff's strange energy, and Lyra kept glancing at it with wonder. There was more to this planet than anyone had imagined, and somehow humans had managed to survive here, adapt, and even reach out to help each other when danger struck. By the time they reached a flat area near the ranch, the twin suns had set, leaving a sky full of stars. The night air was cool, carrying the scents of alien flora and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. Lyra finally relaxed, sitting on a smooth boulder and breathing deeply. Elias set down her pack, checking it for damage. "You're lucky. Not everyone would make it through a place like that." "I know," Lyra admitted softly, "and I'll never forget it. You showed me something important today. Humans can make a difference." Elias smiled faintly. "We try, that's all we can do." For a moment the two of them simply watched the cliffs, glowing faintly under the light of Orlia Prime's moons. Somewhere deep within the rock, the strange pulsing patterns continued, silent yet alive. Elias didn't know what they meant yet, but he felt a spark of anticipation. If humans could survive, adapt, and act in the face of danger, maybe, just maybe, they could discover something incredible here. And somewhere in the quiet darkness of the canyon, the planet itself seemed to acknowledge him. A subtle shift of light, a soft hum beneath the rocks, as if to say, "You belong here, human." Elias Harrow knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The first rays of dawn painted the crimson canyon in shades of gold and rose. The cool air carried the faint scent of alien flora and the faint hum of unseen creatures stirring from the night. Elias Harrow adjusted his hover suit straps and looked up at the towering cliff where Lyra had been trapped just hours before. The memory of her terrified voice still lingered in his mind. "Please, I'm begging you." It had been a close call, but that moment had changed everything. Elias now understood that this canyon was not just dangerous, it was extraordinary. Its glowing veins seemed to pulse in response to the wind and sunlight, and he could almost feel a rhythm, as though the canyon itself had a heartbeat. Lyra had spent the night resting at his ranch, and now she was ready to continue her work. She was cautious but determined, and her eyes sparkled with the same curiosity that had landed her in danger. "Are you sure you want to go back?" Elias asked, his voice calm but firm. He had learned long ago that curiosity was a blessing and a curse, especially on Orlia Prime. Lyra nodded. "I need to study it. I need to see what made the cliff alive. I can't explain it yet, but I feel like it's more than just rock." Elias sighed, running a hand over his stubbled chin. He was a man of practicality, of hands-on solutions, but he had learned to trust human intuition, and right now he trusted Lyra's intuition. "All right," he said finally. "We do it together, step by step. No rush." They loaded essential gear onto the hovercraft. Climbing tethers, sensors, and a small robotic probe Elias had modified for stability. The craft lifted from the ranch grounds and hovered toward the cliff, its engines humming softly against the canyon's quiet. As they approached the ledge, Elias carefully scanned the area. The cliff face had sharp edges, uneven footholds, and patches of glowing veins that seemed to shimmer more brightly as they neared. The canyon winds were unpredictable, gusting suddenly from narrow cracks and deep crevices, but Elias was ready. He had prepared for every variable he could think of. "Stay close," he instructed. "I'll go first to make sure the area is safe." Lyra nodded, gripping the tether firmly. Her heart raced, not with fear this time, but with anticipation. Elias stepped onto the cliff ledge, testing each foothold with care. The rocks were solid for the most part, but some areas had a strange softness, almost like the cliff was alive, responding to weight and movement. He tested the robotic probe, which extended a small claw to secure a nearby patch of rock. The probe hummed, scanning the cliff's surface and sending data back to their small control tablet. Lyra watched, fascinated. "It's reacting to you," she said softly. "The glow, it changes." Elias nodded. "I noticed that yesterday. It's like it's aware of us. We just have to be careful." Step by step, he made his way to the exact spot where Lyra had been trapped. The cliff's surface here was narrower, a ledge barely wide enough to hold one person. Below, the canyon dropped sharply, disappearing into shadows. Elias anchored the hovercraft near the edge, letting its engine counterbalance the pull of gravity and wind. "All right," he said, attaching a sturdy rope to the main tether. "I'm coming down to lift you this time. Hold on tight." Lyra swallowed hard, gripping the tether with both hands. "I trust you," she whispered. Elias moved carefully along the narrow ledge, his boots clinking softly against the rock. The wind tried to push him off balance, but he leaned into it, using the hovercraft's stabilizers to counteract the force. The robotic arm extended toward Lyra, its claw ready to secure her harness. "Here," he said, his voice steady. "Grab my hand or the arm. Whatever feels stronger." Lyra reached out, her fingers trembling slightly, and grasped the mechanical claw. Elias gently locked it around her harness and tested the connection. It held. "Okay," he said. "I'm going to lift you slowly. Don't panic, we move together." He activated the hovercraft's stabilizers, feeling the subtle tug of gravity and wind. Slowly, carefully, he began to lift her from the ledge. Lyra's feet left the rock's surface, and she floated slightly in the air, supported by the robotic arm and the craft. The wind buffeted her, but Elias kept his movements deliberate and precise. "You're doing great," he reassured her, "just a little higher." As he lifted her, Elias noticed something strange. The glowing veins in the cliff started to pulse more brightly, almost like a heartbeat accelerating. The rock shifted slightly under his boots, as if it were acknowledging the rescue. Elias had faced many challenges on Orlia Prime, but this was unlike anything he had experienced. "You feel that?" Lyra whispered. "The cliff, it's alive." Elias nodded. "I know, I can feel it too. Stay calm and we'll be safe." Slowly, inch by inch, he brought her to solid ground. When her feet finally touched the stable ledge, she stumbled slightly, overwhelmed by relief. Elias steadied her, his hands firm but gentle. I can't believe it," she said, her voice shaky. "I thought I was done for." "You're safe now," Elias said. "That's what matters, everything else can wait." Lyra took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the cliff. "But look at it, it's not just rock. It moves, it reacts. I've never seen anything like this." Elias studied the glowing veins, his mind working through possibilities. He had worked with animals all his life, and he realized that the canyon's reaction was not random. It was responding to life, human life in this case. Perhaps it was a form of communication, or maybe a natural defense mechanism. Either way, it fascinated him. "Let's find a safe place to study it," he suggested. "We can observe without risking ourselves again." They moved carefully along the ledge, keeping their weight low and steady. The canyon seemed to guide them, its glowing patterns shifting as they walked. Elias couldn't explain it, but he felt a strange connection to the planet. It was almost as if Orlia Prime itself recognized their presence and allowed them passage. After a few minutes, they reached a small plateau, safe from the wind and with a clear view of the glowing cliffs. Lyra set down her sensors and began to take readings, her excitement palpable. "This is incredible," she said. "No one has ever documented this before. The cliff responds to living beings, maybe even to emotion or intent." Elias nodded, watching her work. Humans had a unique ability to adapt and understand, even in strange environments. It was not brute strength or advanced technology alone that had saved her. It was human intuition, empathy, and careful action. As they continued their study, the sun rose higher, casting light on the glowing veins and revealing patterns they had not noticed before. The canyon seemed to pulse in rhythm with their movements, almost like a conversation. Elias realized that this planet, with all its dangers, was offering a gift, the chance for humans to learn, to adapt, and to communicate with something truly alien. Lyra paused and looked at him, her eyes wide. You saved me, not just from falling but from giving up." "That's human, isn't it? That we act even when things seem impossible," Elias smiled faintly. "It is. We try, we adapt, and we care. That's what makes us human. And sometimes that's enough to survive even the strangest places." For a long moment they stood in silence, watching the cliffs and the soft glow of the alien veins. The wind had calmed and the canyon seemed to breathe with them. Elias felt a sense of awe mixed with determination. This was only the beginning. There were secrets in the canyon, secrets that humans could discover if they approached with care, respect, and courage. And as he looked at Lyra, he knew that together, they could face whatever mysteries Orlia Prime held. The cliffs pulsed gently beneath the rising sun, as if acknowledging their presence. And in that silent, glowing canyon, Elias Harrow understood one truth. Human courage and empathy could light the darkest paths, even on a planet that seemed alive. The sun had climbed higher in the sky, spilling warm light across the crimson canyon. The air shimmered above the rocks, and the faint hum of distant creatures filled the silence. Elias Harrow and Lyra Venn stood on the plateau, both exhausted but exhilarated. The cliff rescue had been successful, but the canyon was far from ordinary. Lyra adjusted her sensors and stepped closer to the glowing veins in the rock. "There's something beneath the surface," she said softly. "The energy readings are stronger here than anywhere else I've been. I think the cliff might be hiding something." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Hiding something? Like what?" "I'm not sure yet," she admitted. "But the patterns in the glow, they're not random. They almost look like signals or maybe a map." Elias studied the cliff, squinting at the pulsing light. The veins shifted gently as the wind brushed against the rock, creating shapes that reminded him of flowing water. He had worked with animals his whole life and had learned to notice subtle cues that others missed. There was intelligence here, he was certain of it. Something in the canyon was alive, not in the way animals were alive, but in a way that felt deliberate. "Let's take a closer look," he suggested, carefully, step by step. They moved toward the base of the cliff, following a narrow path that hugged the rock wall. The ground was uneven, but Elias led the way with confidence, his boots steady against loose stones. The closer they got, the brighter the glowing veins became. Lyra's sensors picked up an unusual energy pattern, unlike anything recorded in her research database. "It's reacting to us," she whispered. "The readings spike whenever we move closer." Elias nodded. "It's like it's aware of our presence. I felt the same thing yesterday when I lifted you. Maybe it recognizes living beings, or maybe just humans. Lyra crouched down to examine a particularly bright patch of rock. As she touched it lightly with a gloved hand, the glow shifted, forming a series of lines and curves. She jumped back in surprise. "Did you see that?" "Yes," Elias said. "It's communicating somehow." Lyra's eyes widened. "I've studied alien signals before, but this is different. The cliff itself is sending messages." Elias crouched beside her, examining the glowing patterns. "We need to follow it, see where it leads." Carefully, they traced the luminous veins along the cliff face. The patterns twisted and turned, leading them to a narrow crevice barely wide enough for a person to enter. Elias paused, testing the edges with his robotic probe. The rock was stable, but there was a faint vibration beneath his feet, almost like the canyon was alive and watching them. "This is it," Lyra said, her voice tinged with excitement. "The signal leads here. I think there's something inside." Elias nodded. "We'll go together. Stay close and watch your step." They squeezed into the crevice, the glowing veins illuminating the narrow passage. The air was cooler here, and the faint hum of the canyon grew louder, vibrating through the walls. Elias felt a thrill of anticipation. He had faced dangerous creatures and harsh weather on Aurelia Prime, but this was new. The passage widened gradually, revealing a hidden chamber. The walls glowed softly and the floor was smooth, almost polished. Strange patterns of light danced across the ceiling, forming shapes that resembled alien symbols. Elias and Lyra exchanged astonished glances. "This is incredible," Lyra breathed. "It's like the cliff carved its own secret room." Elias moved forward cautiously, scanning the area with his probe. "And it's alive," he said quietly. "The light changes when we move, it's aware of us." Suddenly, a soft movement caught Lyra's eye. Small, luminous creatures emerged from cracks in the walls. They were delicate and translucent, with wings that shimmered like glass. Their bodies emitted soft pulses of light, and they hovered gracefully in the chamber. Elias froze, observing the creatures. "They're intelligent," he whispered. "Look at how they react to us." The creatures circled them curiously, their light patterns shifting in response to human movements. Lyra extended a gloved hand, and one of the creatures landed gently on her fingers. It pulsed brightly, sending a wave of warmth through her. "They trust us," she said softly. "Or at least, they're curious." Elias watched carefully. His years of working with animals taught him patience and observation. Humans had an uncanny ability to connect with other species through empathy and calm behavior. Slowly, he reached out, and another creature landed on his arm, its glow synchronized with the first. The chamber seemed to respond to their presence. The walls pulsed in rhythm with the creatures, light, forming patterns that resembled flowing rivers or intricate mazes. Lyra's sensors beeped, recording the energy shifts and light sequences. "This is more than a hidden chamber," she said. "It's a communication network. The cliff and its creatures are connected somehow." Elias nodded, fascinated. "And we're part of it now. Humans can interact with this, safely, if we're careful." They spent hours exploring the chamber, documenting the glowing patterns and observing the creatures. Elias noticed that when he moved slowly and deliberately, the chamber's light responded positively, forming smoother, harmonious patterns. Sudden movements caused the light to flicker sharply, as if warning them. Lyra scribbled notes in her journal, her handwriting fast and precise. "This could change everything," she said. "If we can understand how the cliff communicates, we could learn from it, maybe even help it or protect it." Elias smiled faintly. "And all it took was trust and patience. Humans can do amazing things when we use our minds and hearts." As the sun began to set outside, casting long shadows into the chamber, Elias and Lyra discovered a deeper tunnel leading further into the cliff. The glowing veins continued, pulsing more intensely, guiding them like a living map. "Shall we see where it goes?" Lyra asked, her eyes shining with excitement. Elias nodded. Yes, but carefully, stay close and follow my lead. They entered the tunnel, the chamber behind them fading into darkness. The walls narrowed and the air grew warmer, carrying faint scents of minerals and alien flora. The glowing veins guided them forward, pulsing rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the tunnel opened into a vast underground cavern. The ceiling arched high above, and the walls were covered in glowing veins that formed intricate, interconnected patterns. More of the translucent creatures hovered in the air, their light synchronized with the cavern's glow. Lyra gasped, "It's a whole ecosystem, underground, and it's alive." Elias nodded, marveling at the sight. Humans have survived harsh worlds before. But this is something entirely new, and we're the first to witness it. They explored the cavern carefully, noting hidden alcoves, pools of shimmering liquid, and clusters of the glowing creatures. Elias realized that the canyon's intelligence was not confined to the surface. The cliffs, the veins, and the creatures formed a network, all interconnected, all responding to life in subtle ways. Lyra set up her sensors in a safe alcove and began recording patterns. If we can decode this, we could learn so much about communication, energy, and perhaps even life itself on Orlia Prime. Elias smiled faintly, watching her work. Humans had a unique ability to observe, understand, and adapt. Machines could gather data, but humans could connect. That connection, the ability to empathize, to act with care and attention, was what made them exceptional. Hours passed, and the cavern seemed to settle around them, its glow dimming and pulsing softly like a heartbeat in the quiet. Elias realized that they had discovered something extraordinary, a sentient, interconnected ecosystem that responded to life and thought. Lyra looked up from her journal, eyes wide with wonder. "We've only just begun. Imagine what we could learn if we continue to explore safely." Elias nodded. "And we will. But for now, we need to rest. Tomorrow, we continue. This canyon, it has chosen to let us in. We must respect it, and we must learn carefully." They set up a small camp in the cavern, taking care not to disturb the glowing veins or the creatures. The cavern pulsed softly around them, like a living heartbeat, and Elias felt a sense of awe unlike anything he had experienced before. As he drifted to sleep, he thought of the canyon, the cliff, and the creatures. Humans had survived and thrived because of courage, ingenuity, and empathy. And now, on Orlia Prime, those same qualities had opened a door to something incredible, something alive, intelligent, and waiting to be understood. For the first time, Elias felt that the true adventure was only beginning. The cliff outside pulsed faintly under the twin moons, its heartbeat steady and welcoming, as if acknowledging the presence of the humans who had dared to enter its hidden world. And in that silent, glowing cavern, Elias Harrow and Lyra Venn realized they were part of something greater, a living, breathing planet that had chosen to reveal its secrets to humanity. The underground cavern had settled into a calm rhythm, the glowing veins pulsing like a heartbeat. Elias Harrow sat cross-legged on a smooth patch of stone, watching the translucent creatures flit through the air. Their wings shimmered softly, casting tiny reflections on the walls, and every pulse of light seemed to synchronize with the energy in the cavern. Lyra Venn adjusted her sensors, taking careful readings of the creature's movements and the cave's luminous veins. "Elias," she said softly, "these creatures, they're intelligent, but not in the way we expected. Their patterns aren't random, they're responding to us, to our movements, even our thoughts in some way." Elias nodded. "I noticed that yesterday when we were near the ledge. They react to presence, to patience, to calmness. And probably to confidence too." He reached out slowly, and one of the smaller creatures hovered near his hand, its wings glowing brighter. "Humans have a strange ability. We notice patterns, connect with things, and adapt. That's what makes us different." Lyra smiled. "And lucky for us, because if this canyon can respond, we have to be careful. One wrong move could startle them." Elias leaned forward, speaking quietly. Then we move slowly, carefully, and observe. Let them guide us. Watch how they react. That's our edge. For the next few hours, they explored the cavern together, always mindful of the creature's reactions. The beings moved with grace, hovering in synchronized patterns, illuminating parts of the cavern as if guiding Elias and Lyra. In some areas, the glowing veins of the cliff brightened when the humans paused, dimmed when they moved abruptly, and shifted color when the creatures gathered nearby. "This is like a conversation," Lyra said, her eyes wide with wonder. "We're learning their language slowly." Elias nodded, carefully following her lead. "It's not just language, it's trust. Humans can earn trust with observation and patience. That's our advantage here. Machines could gather data, but they can't connect in the way we do." They reached a cluster of natural pools, their surfaces smooth and glowing faintly with the reflection of the cavern veins. One of the larger creatures hovered near a pool, pulsing light toward it. When Elias touched the surface gently, the water rippled and reflected the glowing veins in a more vibrant pattern. Lyra gasped. "It's like the water is amplifying their signals. This is incredible. It's not just communication, it's a network." Elias smiled faintly. "Humans can detect and interpret patterns. That's what's happening here. We notice subtleties others might miss." He stood and took a cautious step toward the larger chamber ahead, motioning for Lyra to follow. "Let's see if the signals lead anywhere else. Maybe deeper into the cliff." The cavern widened gradually, revealing a high arching space filled with glowing veins and hovering creatures. Elias noticed subtle differences here. The creatures' pulses were faster, the light patterns more intricate. They seemed to be showing him something. "Look at that," he said, pointing to a wall covered in intricate glowing lines. "It's almost like a map or a guide." Lyra approached carefully, scanning the wall with her sensors. "You're right. And these pulses, they change when we move closer. It's deliberate. The creatures are guiding us." Elias studied them closely, observing their movements and light pulses. "Humans can adapt to patterns. We can interpret intent, even from alien life. That's why they're letting us in. Our edge is understanding, observing, and acting carefully." As they moved along the cavern, Elias noticed a small alcove filled with faintly glowing minerals. He knelt to inspect them, brushing a hand across the crystalline surfaces. "These could be energy sources," he murmured. "They're stable, glowing. Maybe the canyon uses them to power the network of light and creatures." Lyra nodded. "If we can study this carefully, humans might be able to work with this ecosystem without harming it. That's the real potential here." Elias straightened and gestured toward a narrow passage leading deeper. "Come on, let's see what else is here. The creatures are guiding us, and that's a sign they trust us. We respect that trust and we keep moving carefully." They entered the passage slowly. The walls narrowed, and the creatures formed a shimmering pathway ahead, hovering in precise formations. Every pulse of light seemed to correspond with the pattern of the glowing veins on the walls. Elias and Lyra felt as though they were moving through a living labyrinth, guided by intelligence far beyond human understanding, but responding to human intuition. "Do you think this network understands humans?" Lyra whispered. Elias shrugged. "Maybe not completely. But it recognizes us as capable, careful, adaptable. It senses our presence and adjusts. That's all we need right now." The passage opened into another large chamber, this one filled with clusters of luminous plants. Their leaves glowed softly, and faint tendrils extended toward the hovering creatures, creating a network of light and movement. Elias stepped carefully among them, observing how the creatures interacted with the plants. "They're not just intelligent, they're cooperative," he said. "Everything in this cavern works together. The plants, the creatures, the glowing veins. It's a single ecosystem, responding to life around it." Lyra knelt near one of the plants, letting a small creature land on her hand. Its glow pulsed softly, and the plant responded with a gentle shimmer. They're teaching us, or at least letting us observe. We have to be careful not to disturb anything. Elias nodded. Humans have an edge here because we can understand patterns and act with care. We notice subtle changes, we respond calmly. That's why they trust us. Machines could never do this. They spent hours exploring the chamber, documenting the glowing patterns, the pulses of the creatures, and the reactions of the plants. Every step was careful, every movement deliberate. Elias noticed that the more patient and observant they were, the more the ecosystem seemed to respond positively. "This is remarkable," Lyra said finally, sitting back on a rock. "Humans didn't just survive here, they can interact, even communicate. And all because we observe, we adapt, and we act carefully." Elias smiled faintly. "That's the human edge. We notice, we connect, we think ahead. That's why we can thrive, even in places that seem impossible." As the sun outside dipped lower, casting long shadows into the cavern, they discovered a deeper section filled with shimmering pools and intricate crystalline formations. The creatures guided them to the edge of one pool, hovering in formation and pulsing bright light. Elias reached down and touched the water lightly. The pool glowed more intensely, reflecting patterns from the cavern walls and creatures above. "It's like a mirror of the entire ecosystem," Lyra whispered. "Everything is connected, and we're a part of it now." Elias nodded. "We have to remember that. Humans can explore and learn, but we must respect the system. That's part of our edge. We understand responsibility." For a moment, they both sat in silence, absorbing the beauty and complexity of the cavern. The creatures floated above them, pulsing gently, and the glowing veins of the cliff illuminated the space like a living map. Elias felt a deep sense of awe. Humans had survived and adapted on countless worlds, but this was extraordinary. "We can learn from this place," Lyra said softly, "not just about the cliffs, but about ourselves, about what humans are capable of: care, observation, patience, empathy. That's why we survived and why we're here now." Elias smiled. "And that's why we'll continue. We have an opportunity few humans will ever get, to connect, to understand, to explore responsibly. And we're ready." They stayed in the cavern until the first stars appeared in the sky outside, the creatures still pulsing softly above them. Elias and Lyra set up a small observation area, taking care not to disturb the network of light, plants, and creatures. They recorded everything meticulously, knowing that this was only the beginning of something extraordinary. As they rested, Elias reflected on what had happened. Humans had an edge not because of strength, not because of technology, but because of adaptability, empathy, and careful observation. That edge had allowed them to survive and even thrive in the most dangerous and mysterious environments. And on Orlia Prime, it had opened the door to a hidden, intelligent ecosystem waiting to be understood. Lyra looked at Elias, eyes bright with wonder. "I can't wait to continue tomorrow. There's so much to learn, and I feel like this ecosystem wants to teach us." Elias nodded. "It does, but we have to keep respecting it, moving carefully and observing. That's how humans thrive. That's how we connect." And in the glowing heart of the canyon, beneath the twin moons of Orlia Prime, Elias Harrow and Lyra Venn realized the truth. Humans had an edge that no machine could replicate. They had empathy, ingenuity, and the ability to connect with life in ways the canyon itself seemed to recognize. The cavern pulsed gently, as if approving their presence, welcoming them to explore and learn. And Elias knew that the adventure was far from over. Humans had discovered not just a hidden ecosystem, but the potential to communicate, cooperate, and thrive in ways that no one had imagined. The creatures hovered softly around them, their light synchronized with the glowing veins in the walls. And Elias smiled, knowing that humans, curious, adaptable, and compassionate, had been given a chance to step into a world that had been waiting for them. The journey was just beginning, and Orlia Prime was alive, aware, and ready to teach. The first light of dawn filtered into the cavern, painting the glowing veins of the cliff in soft golden hues. Elia's harrow stretched his arms, feeling the pulse of the canyon beneath his feet. It was a rhythm he had grown accustomed to over the past days, and it now felt almost like a heartbeat of the planet itself. Beside him, Lyra Venn carefully adjusted her sensors, her eyes shining with excitement. "Today we explore the deepest section," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "If the canyon is guiding us, this is where it will reveal its true secret." Elias nodded. "We go carefully, step by step. Remember what we've learned, observe, adapt, and respect." They moved forward through the cavern, following the path of the glowing veins. The creatures fluttered around them in synchronized patterns, guiding their steps like silent guardians. Every pulse of light seemed deliberate, almost like a signal encouraging them forward. Elias felt a sense of awe. Humans had survived on many worlds before, but this canyon, with all its intelligence, had allowed them to enter its heart. "Do you ever think," Lyra asked quietly, "that the canyon actually understands us, that it knows we're not a threat?" Elias thought for a moment. "I don't know if it understands like we do, but it recognizes us. It senses our caution, our patience, our respect. That's enough for now." The passage opened into a vast chamber, larger than any they had seen before. The ceiling arched high above them, dripping with glowing crystalline formations. Pools of luminous liquid reflected the patterns of the canyon veins, creating a mesmerizing display of light and color. The creatures hovered in intricate formations, their pulses synchronized with the glow of the cliffs. Lyra gasped. "It's beautiful. It's like the canyon is alive in a way we've never imagined." Elias walked carefully among the pools, observing the interaction of the creatures with the glowing liquid. "It's more than beauty," he said softly. "This entire ecosystem is connected. The cliffs, the creatures, the liquids, everything responds to life, especially intelligent life. And now it's responding to us." As they explored, Lyra noticed a series of crystalline formations forming a rough pathway toward the far end of the chamber. The creatures seemed to hover along the path, pulsing brighter whenever the humans approached. "Look," Lyra said, "it's guiding us. The patterns in the crystals match the pulses of the creatures. I think it's showing us something." Elias examined the crystals closely. Each one reflected light from multiple angles, creating patterns that were both beautiful and intricate. "Humans notice patterns," he said. "That's our edge. Machines could gather data, but they couldn't connect in the way we do, and that's why it's letting us through." They followed the crystal pathway carefully. The cavern seemed to hum with energy, the pulses of light faster now, synchronized with the movement of the creatures. Elias could feel it beneath his feet, a subtle vibration that seemed almost like encouragement. At the end of the path, they discovered a central pool, larger and more radiant than any they had seen. The liquid shimmered with countless colors, reflecting the veins of the cliff in intricate, shifting patterns. The creatures hovered around it, forming a circle of light. Lyra knelt beside the pool, extending her hand over the surface. As she did, the liquid began to ripple in response to her movement. The creatures pulsed in unison, and the walls of the cavern glowed brighter, forming intricate shapes that seemed almost like symbols. "It's communicating," Lyra whispered. "The canyon, it's showing us its language, its knowledge." Elias knelt beside her, observing. "Humans can understand patterns, make connections. That's why it trusts us. Our edge isn't strength, it's empathy, patience, and intelligence. And now it's revealing itself to us." Lyra carefully recorded the patterns, noting how the crystals, the liquid, and the creatures formed a synchronized system. "This could change everything," she said softly. "If humans can learn to interpret this, we could cooperate with the canyon instead of just studying it. We could help it thrive, and it could help us." Elias nodded. "Exactly. Humans survive because we notice, adapt, and act carefully. That's what makes us special. And the canyon recognizes that." They spent hours observing, documenting, and interacting with the ecosystem. The creatures guided them gently, showing hidden alcoves and luminous formations that were otherwise invisible. Every movement they made was mirrored subtly by the glowing veins of the cliff, as if the canyon itself was alive and responding to their presence. As they explored, Elias realized that the canyon had more to offer than just knowledge. It had resources that humans could use responsibly. The glowing crystals, the luminous liquids, and the coordinated energy of the ecosystem could provide energy, materials, and guidance for human settlements if approached carefully. "This is incredible," Lyra said, her voice filled with awe. "The canyon isn't just alive, it's teaching us, and it's giving us a chance to work with it to understand it." Elias smiled faintly. "Humans have always survived by connecting with life, understanding patterns, and acting responsibly. This is just the next step." As the sun outside began to set, casting long shadows through the cavern, they discovered an elevated platform at the far end of the pool. From there, they could see the entire layout of the chamber. The creatures hovered above, pulsating in intricate sequences, and the walls of the cliff glowed brighter than ever, forming patterns that seemed to tell a story. "It's like a map or a record," Lyra said. "It's showing us what's here, how everything connects." Elias studied the patterns, and it's responding to us. Humans notice, understand, and respect. That's why it's revealing itself. We have an edge no machine can replicate: the ability to connect. They stayed on the platform, observing and recording the patterns until the cavern settled into a gentle rhythm, the creatures hovering calmly around them. Elias realized that the canyon had allowed them into its heart because humans were careful, intelligent, and empathetic. That connection, human connection, had opened doors to knowledge and cooperation that no other species had achieved. Lyra looked at Elias, her eyes shining. "Do you realize what this means? Humans are the first to communicate, really communicate with a living canyon. We're the first to understand it, to cooperate with it." Elias nodded slowly. "And that's the lesson. Human courage, intelligence, and empathy can unlock doors no other force can. That's what it means to be human." As night fell, the twin moons of Orlia Prime rose over the canyon. Their silver light mingled with the glow of the cavern, creating a surreal, peaceful atmosphere. Elias and Lyra sat quietly, absorbing the experience. The creatures hovered gently around them, and the glowing veins pulsed in a soft, rhythmic pattern. "We've been given a gift," Elias said quietly. "Knowledge, guidance, and a chance to work with a living ecosystem, but we must respect it. That's what humans do best: observe, adapt, and act responsibly." Lyra nodded, placing a hand on the edge of the pool. "I'll never forget this. Humans didn't just survive, they connected. And that connection, that's what makes us capable of amazing things." Elias smiled, watching the pulse of the canyon beneath the liquid and the light. "Exactly. And this is only the beginning. Humans can thrive here, and we can learn from this canyon just as it is teaching us." For a long moment they sat in silence, letting the light, the pulse, and the creatures' patterns wash over them. Elias thought about the journey that had begun with a desperate cry for help. "Please, I'm begging you." That moment had led them to a discovery that would change everything, not just for them, but for the future of humans on Orlia Prime. The canyon pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat, acknowledging their presence. Elias understood that humans had made a difference here, not through force, not through technology alone, but through empathy, courage, and the ability to connect with life in ways the canyon recognized. Lyra whispered, "It's like the canyon itself is astonished by us, by humans." Elias chuckled softly. "Maybe it is, and that astonishment, it's well-deserved. Humans have a way of surprising the universe." As they prepared to return to the surface, Elias realized that Orlia Prime had changed him. The canyon had revealed a truth humans often overlooked, that their greatest strength was not their machines or weapons, but their minds, hearts, and capacity to understand and connect. When they finally emerged from the hidden chamber, the stars twinkled above them and the twin moons cast silver light over the canyon's cliffs. Lyra turned to Elia's, awe in her eyes. "We've seen it, really seen it, and humans are part of it now. We're the first to truly connect." Elias nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "And we will continue. Humans will explore, learn, and respect this world. That's what we do. That's who we are." The creatures of the canyon hovered above, pulsing softly in acknowledgement. The cliffs glowed faintly, like a living map waiting for the humans to return. Elias and Lyra understood that they had been given more than a discovery. They had been given trust, guidance, and a chance to participate in something extraordinary. And as they stood under the light of Aurelia Prime's twin moons, Elias Harrow realized a truth he would never forget. Humans had survived countless worlds because of courage, empathy, and ingenuity. On this planet, those same qualities had unlocked the astonishing intelligence of a living canyon. Humans had made their mark, not through strength or domination, but through observation, care, and connection. And in that moment, Elias knew that the story of humanity on Aurelia Prime was only beginning. The canyon pulsed gently beneath their feet, a living testament to the human edge, the ability to understand, to connect, and to thrive, no matter the world.